Hi, everybody. This is just a quick little. I'm just doing a test run to see how well this is going to work out. Um, been a long time since I've streamed anything, so yeah. Um, I haven't really been able to keep up much on um gaming. I'm a little bit behind on that, but like I've been doing a lot of like art stuff lately, so I was like, you know what, let's do a let's do some fun little art streams and see what we could do. So, audio's good. All right, cool. Sounds good. All right. So, let's draw some monsters. You want to draw some monsters? I think we should draw some monsters. Lighting is a bit bright. I know. I'm trying to figure out how to fix that. Tell you what. All right, give me a second. I'll be right back. Let's see if that's any better. Still kind of got a little bit of shine on my forehead, but you know. All right. Yeah. How we doing? We doing okay? All right. Got my water here. Apparently, I'm supposed to have 3 different drinks on me while I'm doing a stream. I've only got the one right now because impromptu test run. So, yeah. Let's see how this goes. All right, so yeah, I know drink fail, right? It's usually how it goes. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out what we want to draw. We're going to be drawing some monsters today, so yeah, good stuff. All right, let's see here. All right, here is my lovely Photoshop. And I know last time I was asking a bunch of people, like, you know, what kind of stuff I should draw. Somebody mentioned something about uh, a lava beetle. So that would probably be interesting. Let's go ahead and do that. First thing we need to do is get up our references. I've already pulled up some references for this. Normally, yeah, there we go. All right, so we got some references. I got some lava going on right here. A little bit of lava flow as a good reference. My reference sheet that I'm using is a program called PureRef. It's an app that you could set your reference photos in, and it'll keep it on top no matter what. No matter what you're drawing on, no matter what program you're using, it'll keep your references on top. So, yeah. I decided that I wanted to do a rhinoceros beetle with this thing because, you know, they look kind of cool. You know, especially this dude, this big gnarly looking guy right here. Look at that. He looks like he's about to like destroy an entire castle thing is like he's about as big as, you know, the first digit of my pinky. So, but yeah, I really like the look of this. So let's go ahead and use that. Plus, I've also got some lava flow references. Yeah. So here's our references, and let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, let's create our sketch layer. Let's name it Sketch, because this is going to be the sketchy layer. All right, let's change over to our pencil. To our pencil, let's make it a blue. All right, so let's see here. I want this to look kind of dynamic, and you know, I'm using my references here, but I don't want it's a monster. You know, it's not so much a rhinoceros beetle. I mean, it's going to look like a rhinoceros beetle, but I want it to look, you know, menacing. So, you know, most rhinoceros beetles look like this thing right here. You know, I'm going to give it a little bit more of a, you know, type of feel. You know, here's my action line that I'm starting with. So let's say, all right, here's like, I think it's called like a thorax or something like that. You know, there's the upper body and then the head. So let's go ahead and kind of give that a little bit of shape here, just because, you know, that way we can kind of get an idea of what we're working with. Like that. There we go. All right, now got the body. And let's see here on our references. I'm really digging this leg here. I mean, it's got some really cool shapes going on. So let's make our legs that. But we also need to keep in mind the spacing of the legs. So looks like one leg's going to start here. One leg starts here, and then one back here. So about like right there. Yeah, I know, little dog abandoned me. He got bored. There's that. Looks like I might be going off the page a little bit, but that's okay. That's one of the great things about working digitally, is you can, you know, adjust things as you need. About like that. Give it a couple more of those. Here we are. All right, so this has got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 sections to the legs. Hi, Marcus. How are we doing today? All right. I just got to remember I'm doing a gesture here. I'm not doing like the full-on thing yet. So, about like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let's say this last piece is about like that. There we go. And let's do this leg kind of moving forward a little bit. So That way it kind of makes it a little bit more, you know. Yeah, I know. I'm going to need some mods to, you know, keep things civil. Alright, here we go. Because last time I tried to do a stream where I was like, I don't care, I'll let people say whatever they want, that turned into a whole big mess. Okay, so plus if you do that, people tend to troll it. Yeah, I know, right? All right, so let's see here. So this leg, working on gesturing the legs to the other side now. About like right there. 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 Now. Now, what I'm doing here is just my method of doing things. Everybody does their own thing differently, and that's fine. You find what works for you and go with it. Some people will try to tell you, oh, you should try this, you should do this, or try something different, or whatever. And that's fine. You know, you can try out those new and different things. But, you know, just don't feel like, if you don't feel comfortable doing it that way, you don't have to, you know? It's your process. It's your work. You're the one who should be happy with what you do at the end of the day. Unless you're doing this professionally, at which point, you know, it's the client who needs to be happy with the work. Let's see. Let's do that. Yeah, that could work. Okay, I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to shrink it down a little bit because in the reference, it's kind of got this big long horn going on right here. I kind of want this horn to be like extensively, like a lot bigger, okay? So, let's do that. There we go, just like that. What works for you? Yeah, well, I mean, you know. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, you're my wife. You know, you could ask me to just draw stuff for you, so, you know. Alright, so let's go ahead and select this because I want to center it up a little bit more, plus I want to shrink it down. So let's transform it, shrink it down a little bit because I want to make room for that big gnarly looking horn that I'm going to put on this thing. Plus I want to center up the drawing a little bit more. There we go. All right, so that is, well, not completely yet. I still need to do the, there we go. There we are, just like that. I'm probably not going to go full on, like, texture painting and whatnot into this. It's probably just going to be a whole lot of, I'm probably going to comic book art this one, which is going to be kind of weird for me because normally I like going full on painting into it, but like, I don't know. If I did that, it's going to take a long, long time to get this done. Yeah, be good. Come on now. I have no idea who's going to come in here. Of course, you know, I already put out the warning saying that, you know, I cuss a lot. So, there's that. All right, so next I'm going to draw on these mandibles here. Maybe do a part 2 with painting. I could do a part 2 where I actually paint this out a little bit. But I think for now, I'm just going to do just a simple coloring. And then I can come back and do a painting of it if people want to see that. But like I said, this is going to be my process. So if you do things differently, great. You know, I mean, it's what makes the world go round, is doing things differently. You know, everybody has their own way. All right, now let's see here. The shape of these mandibles is really kind of crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it like a little dog leg thing going on here. I like that. That's a cool little thing to do. Let's go ahead and do one more set. There we go. And yeah, there we go. I like that. I like that a lot. So let's do that. And there we are. I'm lining up. I'm trying to see if this lines up properly to the perspective that I'm giving this thing. So, all right. So probably about like right there. Right there. And there we are, like that. All right, so that will be my gesture for this thing, which a gesture drawing is a very quick, very dirty, get the thing down. You know, get it on paper, get it plotted out. You know, that's the idea behind this. You know, it just it doesn't have to look good just yet. It doesn't have to look perfect. You know, you're just getting an idea down of what it is that you want to draw. So the idea of a gesture is just a quick, dirty little, here's the idea. Here's what I want to do, you know? All right, so this guy has some hair on him. He's like weird little wispy brown hairs. See all that? Underneath the armor. So let's do some weird stuff with that, okay? So let's do some little wispies here going on to kind of give the idea of, you know, these like weird hairs that are kind of coming out. Okay, so after we got that, just kind of the idea of, you know, weird little hairs going on. All right, so now, right now, this is okay. You know, I'm okay with this so far. You know, give him some eyes real quick. But this doesn't really say lava monster to me yet. So we could rely on the texture and the painting part to do all that, which you absolutely could do. But I think I kind of want to add a little bit of like, it's a monster. I kind of want this thing to be gross. So let's give some like little pools of bleh, you know. And then say it's just kind of dripping stuff. Like, you know, I could see this thing being able to spit lava, you know? So let's give it some of that. All right, so there's that. All right, so there is our gesture that we're going to be working with. All right. Cool. So let's go ahead and start working on our refine drawing a little bit. Now, normally in a refine layer, you would just do like a refinement, you know, one refinement and then you're good. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting inking and refining confused. So let's go ahead and go with a refinement layer. Let's change our pencil to a red because we are now working a new layer. Whenever you make changes in digital painting, always work on a new layer, because if you start working on something and say you accidentally mess it up and you're like, oh crap, you know, sure, you could control Z, but say you've gotten to the point where you can't control Z anymore and you're saying to yourself, you know, I've totally messed this up now. What you could do now instead is just simply delete that layer with the changes on it and, you know, say blah blah. You could just go over here, delete or hide the layer, and you could go back to what you were doing. There we go. There we go. But right now, let's go ahead and start working on our refinement. So, this is the point where we are going to start working on. We're going to take our gesture, and it's not going to be so much of a quick and dirty. Now we're going to start getting into the details of this thing so that when we come back and do our ink pass, you know, we know exactly what we want to do, the details, what we want this thing to look like, the small forms, the small shapes, stuff like that. So, like this one here, you get the idea of the thorax and all that, but it's not really defined just yet. That's what this refinement pass is for, is to do those refinements. What's up, Devil Pop? How we doing? How you doing? How you doing? So, let's go ahead and start refining. Make sure I'm on my layer. Yep, I am on. I did not name this layer. Let's go ahead and name that. Refinement. All right. Just got done watching the movie. What'd you watch? I want to know. What did you go see? Dogman. Was it any good? I know a lot of the kids lately are like going nuts over that movie. I mean, it's my kids love Captain Underpants, Dogman, all that stuff when they were younger. I've got older kids now, but you know, I know that there are some who are like super excited to see what, you know, to see the movie. No, it's not Captain Underpants. It's like it's kind of by the same. Oh, I dropped my pen. If you look at the two books side by side, they're pretty much you know you can see them being from the same company. It's like Marvel Comics or something. Um, really fast pace. It was really good. Good. I'm glad to hear that because I was kind of worried, if it was going to be any good or not. I know that the Captain Underpants movie was good. I like that. All right, so let's go ahead and start building on this now. We're going to do a little bit of a fatter pencil. There we go. And let's turn up our smoothing a little bit because my hand shakes. So, I like to have a little bit of forgiveness when it comes to that. So, now, an accidental thing that happened here is this horn kind of bows out a little bit in this corner. I didn't intend for that to happen, but honestly, I kind of like that. So I'm going to go with that. All right, starting at the very end, and not that much. Here we go. Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right, there we go. And once again, this is not my ink pass. This is my refinement pass. This is where I am going in and taking the simple, basic gesture and defining it more. So those little things, those little details that I really want to add to this, that's what I'm doing here. Okay? And then when I come back and do my ink pass, I'll have a bit more of an idea of where I want to go, what I want to do, Right there we go. Alright, so there we are. Let's not forget our really gnarly looking mandibles. Now this part here that I'm drawing is like a fleshy bit underneath of the armor. Okay, so this part here that is just going to be kind of bleh, just the really gross part. And let's go ahead and get this mandible done. And I am going to do this pointed mandible like that. All right, and here we go. There we go. Start from our point. Come on back around. Let's do this mandible now. And there we go. Those are 3 mandibles. Let's do our little fleshy bits. I like saying that word, fleshy bits. It sounds super gross. Yeah, if anybody has any suggestions for the next drawing that I do, let me know, because I'm good at drawing the stuff. I'm good at like making up stuff, but I'm not good at coming up with ideas. So if you've got some ideas, something cool that you want to see me draw, then I am more than happy to do that. All right, doing these back mandibles now, and there we go. All right, so there's that. Let's go ahead and lose our... Yeah, I'm fine with that so far. All right, now we can start working on this thorax. Now, if we're looking back at our reference here, you'll notice that there's a bit of space where it kind of overlaps right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give a little bit of gap between the head armor and the I can't remember. I think it's thorax, unless this is the thorax. I can't remember. Either way, I'm going to give a little bit of a gap between them. Okay, so let's do that. And I really like the shape that this is turning into, so I'm just going to go with this. All right, just like that. Go. And it's going to have a little bit of overlap from the horn. Like that. So, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that so far. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. All right, now. Next, we're going to work on the back part of the armor, which normally looks like that. I can't help but feel like that's kind of boring. So I'm thinking I might want to give it a little bit of oomph. Maybe some spikes, or like, you know how rhinoceros beetles, head, thorax, abdomen. Okay, cool. Awesome, thank you. You can see here on this rhinoceros beetle, it's got this little bump right there on the thorax, which is right here. But I kind of want to extend that out a little bit. Like, go ahead and give it like a couple more things along the back of the abdomen. So, let's go ahead and make our little gap right here. And then give it a little bump. Another little bump here. And let's give it a bit of a... There we go. There we are. And let's see here. With rhinoceros beetle, it kind of has like this little shape right there. This little form right there along the edge of this part of the abdomen armor. So let's turn this into that. So there we go, just like that. Now give that a little bit of a bump and then bring that down. There we go. I like that. That's cool. I'm cool with that. Are you all cool with that? I'm cool with that. Let's give it I want to give it one more. There we are. That's awesome. Yeah, very fancy. So, all right. Now, got that. And let's give it a little bit of... Go ahead and finish that out. All right, now, let's see here. Let's go ahead and start working on the back legs. And then we can do the front legs. Now, when I was doing my gesture, I was just doing quick little jit because I was like, okay, those are going to be spikes. Now I'm going to have to actually define the spikes themselves. Okay? Like that. And this leg is kind of covered up by our drippy parts. So let's go ahead and do our drips. Go like that, and yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. And now we can actually start working on the leg. Alright, there's that one. And let's keep our reference in mind. And we are using... Ooh, moving stuff around when I shouldn't be. Alright, so I want to start with this back leg. And since it's got this like weird hairy texture, we're just going to start with that. And here we go. There we are. We could do that section of the leg. And just like with the other one I was talking about doing the spikies, now I have to actually define those spikies. Alright, there we are. This is the tail end of the shell. Alright. Alright, now we're going to start on this leg. Now this leg is going to be foreshortened a bit. So while this one is more of a side view, this one's going to be more of a 3/4 view. So instead of having just like a flat view of this side of the leg, it's going to be a little bit thinner. And that little mark to kind of show the indent is going to be a little bit more, it is going to be closer to this edge over here. So there we are, like that. And go. And now we gotta do our little spiky saw teeth. Alright, just like that. There we go. I only did 2 of the back legs. Oh well. I'll do the other one here in a minute. But anyway. Now we're working on this one. Give it a little bit of texture. So alright, so there we are with that. Now once again, still kind of a 3/4, foreshortened a bit. Not as much as this one here, probably the other side of that angle. So there, it's gonna come down like that. All right, here we are. Here we are, just like that. Now we gotta go ahead and do our spikies. Now, one thing I want to do is I want it to seem like that these front legs here, they're not just good for walking. You know, they're also good for like grabbing or holding or working with things. So I'm going to take some of these spikies and I'm also going to put them on this side as well. So And I just realized that I did these spikies wrong. That's a great thing about being an artist, is learning and realizing that everybody makes mistakes. Everybody screws up sometimes. You know, it's just a matter of going back and fixing whatever happened. Make good on your mistakes. This bug will make a great kaiju. I think so. I think it'd be awesome. You know, I'd love to see something like this on Godzilla, or, you know, King Kong, or fighting shoot, I can't remember his name right now. Gamera or something, you know. Ultraman fighting this thing. That'd be awesome. Alright, so these back here, I kind of like that kind of hairy look, so I'm gonna add that here, but now I've got to add some actual spikes right here. There we go. I like that a lot. Alright, so, oh yeah, back leg. Gotta do the other back leg. Alright. Just like that, and there we go. Let's move our gesture, and cool. Our refinement turned out pretty well. I'm digging that. I mean, don't you think? I'm kind of cool with that. So, next we're going to go on into our inking layer, which the inking layer is defining the definite shapes and forms of everything. So, ink, and we are changing from our pencil to a brush. There we go. We'll use this brush. Kind of shrink it down a little bit. And once again, my hands shake like crazy, so I got to turn my smoothing up. And let's go ahead and start working on our inking. There we go. Yep, I'm on the ink layer. Are. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm using my red refinement lines as more of a guideline to what I want the ink to look like. It doesn't have to completely 100% follow it, but it does help me keep in mind my thought process for all of these different shapes and forms. All right, so there we go. Like, I kind of want this here to look like an extension of the mandibles. So I'm kind of building up the form a little bit more in that. Plus, I'm able to go in and add just a little bit more detail. Let's go ahead and shrink this down a little bit more. You know, so like that. All right, there we go. And the funny thing is that I have to keep telling myself that this is a rhinoceros beetle. It is not a spider, it is a rhinoceros beetle. Because I am incredibly arachnophobic. I don't like spiders at all. You could ask my wife, she's the one who has to come deal with that crap. Because if I see a spider in the house, I don't care. I cannot do anything else. No matter what I'm doing, I have to stop what I'm doing until I know that that spider is either gone or dead. So she's the one who has to come in and take care of that. Otherwise, nothing gets done around the house. So I'm sure she would probably love to tell you all about that. But yeah. All right, so all right, so there we go. There we go. Get those eyes done. Add a little bit of detail in here. Just like that. There we are. All right, let's go ahead and start working on these mandibles a bit. I'm going to start at the point. Follow my red lines down. That way I maintain the shape that I'm going for. And then add a little bit of flair and maybe some detail here and there. Alright, there we go. Just like that. Let's start working on this next mandible. Start at the point. Build this first. First joint. Let's work on the next one now. Now, I kind of like what I did with the other one, so I think I'm going to try to do that here as well. So let's do that. And yeah, you deal with the spiders. I don't care about anything else. I could deal with fish. I could deal with, you know, the neighborhood dogs. I could deal with all that crap. You deal with the spiders. I don't want to have to deal with that. That's all you. All right, so moving on to the next mandible. Starting at the tip. There we go. Now this one only has a couple little go like that. So now, let's go ahead and get this part done. There we are. Add a little bit of texture here. Now I'm going to need to see the full extent of the horn, because once again, got to start at the tip and then work your way down. Make sure you connect. If your line doesn't connect, then you can always go back and erase it. Anything you need to do. It's your work. It's your work. All you need to worry about is just making sure you're happy with it. All right? But also keep in mind that I'm not a fan of that. Just keep in mind that, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not exactly what you want it to be, not totally 100% your vision, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's become its own thing. It's you as the artist are making an interpretation, a world for this thing to live in. It can become its own entity. Art has a tendency to want to be what it wants to be, no matter what you envision it to be. I know that sounds weird, that sounds crazy, but it's not. Your art is allowed to live up to its own expectation. It's almost like having a kid, You could take you could take your kid so far. Right now, I'm erasing away some of this shading that I just did because it'll add some texture to it. But after a while, you have to let your kids grow up. You have to let them become their own person, Right. Your art, just like your kids, are going to have a life of their own. And hopefully, if you did things correctly, you can trust that they are going to be able to handle that life. All right, now complete that. Let's go ahead and start working on these mandibles here. Start with our point. And create this little joint. Let's go ahead and create this one. Yeah, just like that. Start that point. Alright, now if you notice, I kind of went over my line a little bit. That's fine. Just erase it. You're fine. You're good to go. Bam. Just like that. Okay? Alright, now mistakes are not the end of the world. Alright. There we go. Now let's take a look without our refinement. Hey, that's coming along pretty well. I could probably work on the line weight a little bit, but that'll come as I'm doing this part. Okay. Let's see here. I just accidentally turned everything off. All right, so for those of you who don't know, line weight is when you are using the thickness or the boldness of your line to show either depth or space, or to show value. So like, if I want something to be further back in the image, it's going to be thin lines like this, okay? If I want something to be closer, in the image, then it's going to be bolder lines like that, okay? Because that's showing you these lines are closer because they are bigger and they are more defined, okay? That's the idea of line weight. Once you master line weight, you could do some really cool stuff with just line drawings, okay? Right now, my line weight is a little all over the place. But, you know, when it comes down to it, I could fix that later. So, let's go ahead and get this thorax done. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the clip. I appreciate that. And all right, there we go. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of texturing and detail in here. All right, there we go, just like that. Now, the original refinement line that I had for the edge of this was supposed to go behind the head here, but if you notice, it's not really lining up with that anymore, so we're just going to have to extend it out a little bit. But let's go ahead and do our cute little hairs like that. All right, and kind of feather it into this line here. All right, so there's that. That is the midsection of the thorax. So let's go ahead and start arcing it back down now. Bam, just like that. Okay, now we could add our little texture to show the little hairs or whatever right there. All right, so there's that. I gotta remember. I'm trying to remind myself that, you know, I'm not doing a full-on drawing here. This is supposed to be just a, you know, quick little drawing that I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm wanting to go like all full detail and everything. So, sorry. There we go. Now we add this lump right here. Give it a little bit of a lump right there. All right, start from our point and come down. All right, now what I'm doing here is what we call implied line. All right. This is basically whenever I'm giving the underside of this horn here a bit of texture. That's not that's not turning out the way I wanted to. So one thing, when you're doing implied line, the idea is, let's do this. I need to redo these anyway, so, because I need to clean these up. Pretty sure I'm currently listening to copyright music, and that sucks, because Spotify doesn't like when you do that. But anyway, so an implied line is basically this. I'm trying to create texture on the underside of this horn here. So I want it to be like this weird ridge look like this. Like that. Okay. But down here, there's going to be a bit of highlight on the underside. So what I'm going to do is kind of erase away where that highlight is going to be. Like that. And that gives that gives us this idea that that texture is moving along here through incomplete line work. Okay? But that is what we call an implied line. This line, if you were actually looking at it, this line here would be going completely across here. But because of the highlight, it does away with part of a portion of that line. So, I gotta fix the music because apparently this turned into supposed to be copyright free music and it's not anymore. All right, that's gonna have to work. All right, so we got that portion of the torso down. Jonas! Hi, Jonas. How you doing? Tell me something good. Tell me some good news. I love hearing good news. Give me some good news. All right. Got to get my references out of the way real quick. And there we go. Let's see here. Follow that all the way down. That line will cover it up. That'll be fine. Let's give it some striations. Never quite sure about that word, but yeah, the ridges, the weird ridges on the back of a beetle, you know. All right, so let's do the underside of this armor here now, and my dog is suddenly going crazy. There we go. Jonas! You're doing good. Okay, great. I'm glad to see that you are picking it up. Always love seeing people getting into the arts, getting into the field, trying new things. That's how we learn. Try it out. All right, so you know what I didn't do? I did not add the little hairs along here. So let's go ahead and erase that. And let's do some of those weird little hairs going along here. There we go, just like that. And what I'm doing here, this is the idea of hash marking, okay? It's just quick little lines that you're using. 9 times out of 10, you're going to use hash marking for showing value change or shadowing or something like that. But on occasion, you'll use hash marking for a lot of different reasons. Like say, oh crap. Let's go ahead and kind of deviate from our monster drawing real quick. Let's draw a head. Do a quick little Loomis head real quick. I know, not totally a Loomis head, but you know, it's good enough for the purposes. Um, see your cheekbone. There we go. Nose, eye, socket, right there. Let's give him an ear. All right, now. About midway through, here's a mouth. All right, now. Normally in a situation that you would be doing hash marking, what you would be doing is defining the forms of whatever it is that you're drawing using very short, dirty little lines. It is a form, it is a skill that is used mostly in comic books, sometimes pop art, you know, just depending. But pretty much hash marking is when you're just doing this thing, okay? You know, let's say I want to show a little bit of shadowing under this cheekbone definition here, okay? So what I would do is just kind of my current smoothness is kind of keeping me from being able to do this properly, but you know, this is the idea of hash marking. You know, you're just kind of doing little lines to show changes in value. This is very dirty, ugly looking hash marks, but you know, that's basically the idea of it. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and get rid of that layer. Yes, get rid of that. Go back to our ink layer and go back to our... What do we want to call this thing? It's a lava beetle. I don't like the idea of calling it a lava beetle. Let's call it something cool. Chat, I need you all to come up with a good name for this monster. It is a giant rhinoceros beetle that shoots lava out of its mouth. Come up with something cool for me. Well, I mean, that's pretty much how you do it. You know, you get the equipment and you work on it. You watch videos, you watch tutorials, you learn how people do it. Everybody likes to say watch the masters, but I'm just saying, you know, watch people that know what they're doing. They don't have to be masters. Like, I would say, look up David Finch. David Finch is a guy who worked for Marvel Comics for a long time, and his art is chef's kiss. You know, he knows proportions, he knows biology very well. If anybody's going to be able to teach you properly, it's going to be him. He's great. Look him up on YouTube. Look up Mark Brunette, M-A-R-C, Brunette, B-R-U-N-E-T. He was a guy who did concept art for Blizzard for a while, and he teaches art on YouTube, and he also has his own classes that he teaches. So you don't have to watch the masters to learn how to do this stuff. You just have to know who to watch. Who works for you? Like, what kind of art are you trying to go for? What kind of style do you want to go for? And, you know, what kind of really cool stuff do you want to draw? Like me, I will never be good at still life. But I could do some really cool, like, you know, monsters or stylized things and whatnot, you know, because that's what I specialize in. You know, I'm also a professional graphic designer, like that's my job, as well as teaching how to do this. So, um, I don't know why I bring this up. I think it's probably just to be like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. But like, there are great artists out there that will teach you how to do really good art. But there's also artists out there who do great work, but don't quite know how to teach properly, if you know what I mean. You know, MoltenBug, I like MoltenBug. Lava Spitter, that's good too, man. Y'all come up with some good stuff, man. I'm just sitting here thinking like Lava Beetle. I don't know. But yeah, I like that. MoltenBug. Kind of reminds me of Transformers when I was a kid. My favorite character, Bumblebee, at one point became a character known as Goldbug. I always hated that, but you know, whatever. As long as the character was still around, you know? But like, it just kind of reminds me of that. There we go. Let's go ahead and give it a little bit of separation right here. There we go. Oh yeah, I was working on the legs. That's right. Before we do that though, let's take a step back. Admire our handiwork. Yeah, it's come along well. I'd say so. I'll have to do a little bit of erasing, but that's okay. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead. I want to go ahead and do this underside here. Because, like, if you look, once again, going back to our references, all these weird little wiry hairs. I love that aspect of this bug. It's so great. That and, like, the weird, like, veiny things going on in the armor, I might just have to add that when I come back and do the actual, like, detail work. All right, so there's that. All right, so there we go. All right, there we are. Now, all right. Go start here. Make sure our lines connect there. Oh, there we are with that. Weird little funky hairs. I forgot that we were doing the hairs thing over here. It's not just the spikies, but it's also the hairs. I have to do stuff like that or else I'll forget, you know? I'll have things pop into my head and be like, oh yeah, I was totally supposed to do that. And like, if I don't do it immediately, I forget. So, there we go, just like that. There we are. Yeah, I like MoltenBug. I like that. I like that name a lot. That's cool. All right, starting in our point. Come up here. Let's make sure it meets. There we go. There, just like that. There go. There we go. Cool. Yeah, this is working out well. So there we go. Well, got a little bit of crossover there. Clean up those edges. Clean up those edges. There we are. Alright, now we're going to start working on this leg. Ooh, I forgot that little detail. There we go. There we are, just like that. Continue our hairs. Kind of being a little more chaotic than I should be. Kind of all over the place. My mind is like all over the place right now, so kind of nervous. This is the first time I've streamed in a long time. So I was streaming games for a while, but like, you know, nobody wants to watch some weird old dude play video games. So here I am drawing kaiju. Because apparently, you know, that's more of a thing that people want to see. So, and I don't mind. I like drawing monsters. I've loved drawing monsters since I was a kid, you know? When I was young, I used to sit there and draw monsters, ninjas. Ninjas were a big thing. Because, like, when I was young, the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers were a thing. And, you know, they were real popular at that time. So, like, I went nuts for that. But, like, my thing was always, I like drawing monsters. So, here we are. And so far, I've made a pretty lucrative career out of it. I'm telling you now, if you can make a career out of art, which, contrary to what people in your life are probably telling you, you could totally do. It's going to take a whole lot of work and a whole lot of sacrifice to get there, but you could absolutely do it. I suggest, if you really want to make a career out of this, do it. By all means. I love doing this for a living. So, but like I said, it's going to be a whole lot of work, a whole lot of sacrifice, a whole lot of, you know, a whole lot of sleepless nights, a whole lot of like crying yourself to sleep, you know. There was a time where when I was going through school, my wife and I were homeless, you know, which sucked. It was the worst. And I felt like such a massive failure because of that. But, you know, she's like, no, we're doing this. If this is what we're doing, then that's the plan, you know? So we did, and we sacrificed, and lucky for us, we had some friends that came along and helped us out, you know, but still, I mean, if it wasn't for her, I would never have, you know, finished. I would have told myself that it was just another failure and that just go home. you know, but she pushed me to the point where she's like, no, you're not happy doing anything else. This is what you want to do with your life. This is what we're going to do. So we pushed through and we made it, and now what I've always wanted to do with my life is what I'm doing now. I'm drawing monsters for a living, and I'm teaching people how to do this stuff. So that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to do. It was just a lot of hard work. A good support system is very important. Digital is easier than pencil and paper when it comes to fixing mistakes, because all you have to do is just Control Z as opposed to erasing and whatnot. But the thing is that if you're working traditionally, at this point, you would be you're not pressing down with your pencil, okay? You are very lightly holding your pencil at the very end, and you're just laying down graphite. You're not pushing or forcing or anything like that, because that's how you get those lines that just won't erase. When you're plotting your lines, you want to try to keep your lines as light as possible. That way, when you come back to do your paint layers and your ink layers and everything, you're not having to mark over or hide those pencil strokes that just won't go away. Okay? All right, now, where am I at? Let's get rid of our refinement for a second. Cool. I'm cool with this so far. Yeah. Now, I'm not so much worried about the ink lines, because I talked earlier about, line weight and everything like that. I'm not so much worried about that right now because of the fact that I plan on coming back and actually coloring this later. Maybe doing a little bit of paint job here and there, but we'll see. But for now, I at least want to get the lines, get the line work done, and then I could come back and do any sort of paint work that I want to do. I'll probably do that later because it's getting pretty late. So, well, not really late, but Hey, Jonas, welcome back. All right, so. All right, so there we are with that. All right, let's go ahead and do our back legs now. Let's see here. Just like that. There we are. Give that a little bit more definition going on in there. And all right, there we are with that. Define our forms in here a little bit, give it a little bit of texture. Now, let's go ahead and do this one. All right, there we go. That's fine. There we go. I like the idea of this form kind of coming down into the leg, but the way I did that line work, it just, yeah. it looked like a mistake. And the thing about whenever you're doing professional work like this, you want things to look like decisions, not mistakes. Everything that you do in your work should look intentional. You did it on purpose, you know. Because there's going to be some times where, you know, people are like, "Oh, why'd you make that decision?" And, you know, if you don't have a good answer for it, it's going to be very difficult to get people to take you seriously, you know. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much that. As far as the line work on this. All right, there we go. Yeah. I'm cool with this so far. What do you all think? I'm cool with this. With our little MoltenBug. I like that. I like that name. MoltenBug. Let's go ahead and do that a little better so that it looks a little bit more cohesive. There we go, just like that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's add a little bit of texture and definition in this right here. Kind of want to do away with this. I want it to come to a point, but I don't want it to be like, you know, this big long line coming up here. That just seems weird to me. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. Awesome. I'm cool with this. Let's see here. A little bit of... All right, cool. Now that at this point, we can just for the sake of keeping things organized, I can go ahead and get rid of, because I'm never going to use them anymore, the refinement layer and our sketch layer. Actually, no, I don't want to get rid of our sketch layer yet, because there's still our landscape that we're going to be building a little later, okay? But for now, we could start... We could at least set up our paint layer. So, I probably won't get too heavy into the painting right now, but we could at least get it set up. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create a layer under our sketch layer, and that will be our paint. Let's say our background. Our background paint layer. And all right, going back to our references now. Let's take a look at the lava. That's some really bright colors. It's a huge contrast between the darkness of the cooler spots than the actual molten lava itself. But it's all still kind of different values of red. Red and kind of a orange. Yeah, orange. So, let's say our about like this almost black kind of red, but let's give it a little bit of yellow as well. So we'll say, there we go. About like that. All right. Now, background paint. Background of this guy is not going to be too important, but I still just kind of want to stylize it a little bit. So let's give it a really cool little... I don't know. Do I have any oil brushes? Probably not. Splatter brushes. Impressionist blenders. Ah, there we go. Oil. There we go. And let's go ahead and... I want the saturation on this to be bright, but like, you know, I don't want it to be like a pastel. You know what I mean? That's fine. We can work with that. So, color swatch. You know, brush up to snuff. And I'm doing the background, and it's just going to be a very very simple kind of background because I could come back and do the detail work on that later, okay? So, you know. Seems my computer does not like these these special effect brushes. First of all, let's get that out of the way. I hate that window. This little thingy here, I hate that. It's always in the way, you know? I know, right? But the thing is that, you know, making lava that looks good, that's the hard part, you know? Whatever you make, whenever you're painting lava and fire or stuff like that, it's so detailed, so highly detailed that like making it look good and believable becomes very difficult. All right, so that's our ground plane. I've got some areas back here that are kind of raised like blocks or something, so we can raise our saturation a little bit or lower the saturation a little bit. Let's go ahead and create another layer, put it behind. You know, and we'll just create these little plateaus, you know. The reason why I raised the saturation is because if you notice on whenever you're looking way off into the distance, there's something that we call atmospheric perspective. As things move away, they become less saturated, less detailed, you know, less, you know, harder to see, basically. So as things move away, they'll start to almost get this fog or a haze over them, you know? And that's true of every scene that has an atmosphere. And, you know, every, you know, any kind of instance where, you know, you're looking at a landscape of some type, there's always going to be something that's, you know, you know, it's gonna fade out as it comes to the background. Okay, so keep that in mind. I do not have a community Discord or anything like that. This is honestly, I just did this stream on a whim. I haven't streamed in a long, long time, but I do have a merch shop and I do have a website. So let's go ahead. Damn it. Oh, well, let me do it. So, hey, Pixie, do me a favor and throw my website in the chat. It's crowjandesigns.com, CROWJAN designs.com. That's my website. You could find my merch store and you can see my other art and stuff like that. I'm also currently trying to get a webcomic off the ground if I could just find the motivation to actually do it. Yeah, bots and Discord definitely set up before the next stream. But yeah, this is basically just like just supposed to be a test stream to make it where I can, you know, do this stuff, you know. But I'm just doing it for the fun of it. So, yeah. All right, so let's go ahead, add a little bit of detail to our background, just the slightest. Let's say that. There we go. Bam. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and give this a sky color as well. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set two different values. Let's say like a darker red. I've created a layer behind my ground layers. And I'm going to do a gradient fill. That's not right. There we go, just like that. And change to a linear. There we go. I like that. I like that a lot. Now that that's done, let's go ahead and rasterize it. Rasterize layer. Basically, rasterizing is whenever you do something like this, where you're doing like a special effect or whatnot, and then you're turning it into a painted pixel image. So you don't rasterize something until you are completely done with that tool. Because once you rasterize it, that's it. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do here is, this is probably going to bog down my system a bit, but I'm now going to do some like weird little smearings and some smudges here and there using the smudge tool so that it gives the sky a bit of texture. And like I said, it's probably going to be... My system's probably going to have a hard time trying to keep up with me. So, we'll see. There's that. Let's go ahead and get back on our paintbrush. As soon as it's done, let it catch up. And whenever you're done, please catch up. You know what I haven't done in a long time? You know what I haven't done yet that I should have been doing all this time? I've been working on this thing for an hour and 45 minutes, and you know what I haven't done yet? I have not saved. Okay. Look at my face when I say this. I have not saved. Oh. Save your work constantly, because when you're working digitally, you never know when it's going to crap out. So let's go ahead and save this real quick. Save as desktop. Let's call it, what are we calling it? MoltenBug? Yeah, MoltenBug. MoltenBug. And I will save this in the stream folder. Yes, save it. There we go. All right, now, back to what we were doing. Let's get our references out of the way real quick. I am lucky, okay? I work for a college. I teach art for a college. I can't tell you which college, because then I'm basically going to have to be a representative of that college. And this stream, I tend to be a little... I use foul language. So, yeah. Either way, because of that, I have access to certain programs. Blender is a really good one. I have access to Maya. I also have access to Substance and other such things that normally I'd have to pay hundreds of dollars for individually. And for this, I don't. Because the school pays for it, because I'm teaching people how to use it. There we go. All right, so back to our MoltenBug. Let's go ahead and hide our sketch layer. Where did I put my pen? There it is. Where it's supposed to go. All right, now on our background, I want to make some clouds. So I'm going to give it just like a quick little, see what happens here. To kind of give it a little bit of cloudiness here and there, you know? And it doesn't, you know, it's not going to be, like I said, it's not going to be perfect. Because, you know, it is what it is. But it's supposed to be just like a quick little, just something back there, you know? I'll come back and fill out the details and whatnot more later. Let's go ahead and get some darker values now, so... Whenever I say values, what I actually mean is shadowing and highlight. That is what we call value, okay? A lot of people have this idea that artistic value is when we're talking about how much something's worth or something like that, and it's not. Artistic value is just how dark or light a color is. And that's not color. Color is totally different. Color is um, when you're talking about red, green, blue, purple, pink, salmon, or whatever else. When you are describing different colors, that's when you're talking about color. Whenever someone's telling you the difference between white, pink, salmon, and red, those are all different values. Okay? They're all the same color, just different saturations of that color. Okay? Now, white and black are both values. They're not really colors, they're values. Because white and black can be values of any color. Okay? So that's why it's important to have that distinction. All right, so now that I'm done blabbering on about that, let's go ahead and I think we'll set our base colors and then we'll be done for this stream. And then I'll pick it up again another time. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So let's go ahead and change back to our normal brush. We'll find a good value to set this, or a good color to set our... Where are my references? Oh, here they are. Let's find a good base value to set this from. So let's say kind of like this orangey color, but make it a little bit more red. A little bit more red than that. So we'll say that. Okay, so that's going to be the underbelly of this thing is going to be the color of the flowing lava. Okay, and then we'll make the armor aspect of it is going to be the color of the cooler parts, the black. I forget what you call that, but basically the lava rock. Okay, we'll set it there. Do I know a place where you could post beginner's drawings to get opinions and advice? Honestly, there is a website called artstation.com. It is a place where you can get a hold of professional artists. You could say DeviantArt or something like that, but the thing with DeviantArt is that you have a lot of people that you really have to pick and choose what advice you get from who, okay? ArtStation is a bit more professional artists that get together and work on things. ArtStation is a great place to go where you can get a hold of people that do things professionally. Like if you find someone who does work that you really like and you'd like to emulate that, or if it's along the style that you're trying to do, you can get a hold of them, pick their brain, talk to them. So I'd say go to ArtStation, STATION, artstation.com, and create a account there and just start posting your stuff and find work that you like on there and get a hold of those artists and be like, hey, you know, I'd like to pick your brain a little bit. So ArtStation's a great place for that. All right, so let's go ahead and get our references out of the way. Let's go ahead and set our base colors. So once again, this is not the best way to do this, but it is my way to do it, how I like to do it. That's not going to work. All right, so now you're seeing why I tell you it's an important idea to make sure your lines are complete. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to select the outside area so that I can invert and then select just the monster. But because I went in and did all this hair work right here, it's not complete. The line work isn't complete. So let's see if I can fill some of these gaps real quick. Grab my. There we go. There we go. Trying to close up some of these open areas along here. So whenever I go to select, I'm doing this the cheap, quick, easy way. You know, I am reticent to say cheating because it's not really cheating. It's just doing it the easy way, you know, the quick way. Which when you're working professionally, that's what you want to do, the quick, easy way. All right. Let's go ahead and use our magic wand, see if that still didn't fix the issue. So what else are we missing? Oh, big old gap right there. There we go. There's that. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, I'm also noticing some areas where I kind of wasn't completing the line. Da-da-da. Excuse me. There's that, there's that. All right, now, what do we got going on? All right, that's good. That's good. All right, there we go. Now we're in business. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to complete my selection. Make sure that we are okay, cool. I think that's it. Oh, nope. There's this right here. All right, so let's invert the selection. All right. And let's create a new layer. I want to create it under the ink so that I could keep the details that I drew on the ink layer. And I'm going to fill in the selection. Typically, in professional work, you don't want to use the fill tool. You want to use your paintbrush as much as possible, because the fill tool has a tendency to it's real janky. It's not a good tool to use, but situations like this where it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. Let's go ahead and fill in right there and deselect. So there we have our base color for this thing, okay? Oh, you're doing fun, Jonas. I didn't even notice. Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody starts somewhere, you know, and those of us who've done this for a long time, we remember how how difficult it was to come up in the business, and we remember how we were when we were first getting started. So, you know, people who are actually honest to God, really worth learning from, they're going to remember that. And they're going to remember, you know, how difficult it is to find good help. So, you know, they're going to be encouraging. They're going to help you out. So, that's why I always say that it's really important to find someone that's going to lift you up in your work, okay? And another important thing to do is to learn how to take a critique, okay? Um, yeah, that is awesome. I wish I could speak more than one language. That'd be great. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah. We all start from nothing. And we all build up from that. Even if you have talent for it, you still start from nothing. Talent means nothing if you are not working and building, okay? Even if you are talented, you still have to build and you still have to practice it, you know? Nobody starts out a Picasso. Nobody starts out Leonardo da Vinci. Nobody starts out as Giger or anything like that. They all worked at it, you know. They all learned. They tried. They did different things, you know. And they all made mistakes. And they all did stupid stuff. Everybody does. It's just a matter of what you learn from that, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and set the armor, set the base color for the armor, which I think is more of a darker red, almost black, not quite, bit more gray, but still that hint of red to it. So I'd say something you could do in this is you could also bring up your reference photos in Photoshop and eyedrop tool, but whatever. Okay, so I just like making things difficult for myself. All right, let's go ahead and we are now going to go to our paint layer, which I forgot to name the paint layer. Let's go ahead and name that. Paint layer. We are going to do what is known as the alpha lock. Okay, this is basically clicking on this little checkerboard thingy right here. Is whatever layer you have selected, you cannot make changes to anything outside of what is already there. So, if right now I'm currently on my paint layer, if I want to draw something over here, I have to either create a new layer or unlock this layer. Because right now, that's what Alpha Lock does. Okay? It's a great way to make it where you could do stuff like this and not have to worry about going over that edge. Okay? And you don't have to worry about hitting those small details because the small details are already there. They're already defined. All right, so we could just fill it in like that. Okay. Now, I am only hitting the major parts that I'm not going to have to worry about going in and doing the small details just yet. You know, I'm just hitting the areas where it's real easy. I got concentration face going on. Okay, so now that that's done, we can now go in and start doing the details, the smaller areas, okay? So like the areas of the hairs and getting this little nook right here that I missed. All right, like that. Getting in this little area right here. And my tablet is really awesome. And I'm able to define how big I want my spots to be based on pressure. So I'm taking advantage of that right now. Just following along this edge here. Just like that. And this is the very nerve-wracking part. Because, you know, the slightest little thing is going to make you go, oh no, I messed it all up. And whether you even did or not, you know. Let's go ahead and work a little smaller on these mandibles. Yeah, see right there, I kind of overlapped a little bit, but that's okay because I could go back and fix it. There we go. Just like that. Because I still have the alpha lock on, the only thing I need to worry about overlapping is onto the orange parts. I need to go back and fix that. But that's okay, because I'll deal with it here in a bit. Alright, just like that. There we are. Oh, I still need to go even smaller because I'm hitting areas that should be orange. Alright, there we go. We'll fix this spot right there. Turn our brush back up and keep drawing. Now, once again, a lot of people like to say don't use fill, but I'm going to be a little cheater here. Bloop, bloop. Now, this line right here, that is why most people don't like using the fill bucket, is because it makes this weird little line around anything that you fill. Honestly, I'm filling all this in anyway, so I might as well just go ahead and use the fill bucket and then just fill in those lines. Sometimes it's just easier to do it that way. But fill bucket is not a tool that you could totally rely on though, because something you could do is let's say let's draw that. Let's complete it. And I'm going to fill it. And it creates that weird edge. Now, let's zoom in on here so that you can see what happens next, okay? If I go in to fill again, it takes out that edge, but it adds a bit of jaggedness to the edge of my shape. Sometimes that's okay, but a lot of times it really ruins the resolution of the image that you're working on, okay? So it's not a good idea to use fill bucket for everything. Well, I mean, you know, it's good that you're working on the squares, that you're working on the circles, the basic shapes and stuff, because that way you learn the basics. Once you are able to master the basics, that's when you know you have to have a good solid foundation, okay? And once you have that foundation, that's when you know that you're going to be you have a good stable base to start your career from. All right, now I am filling in a bit more orange up here in the hairs than I'd like to be, but I'm doing it on purpose. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to come back with the orange and a thinner brush and define those hairs a little better, okay? All right, so we have our base layer of paint now. So there is that. I think that this is a good stopping point for now. So we're going to save. Okay. And I'm starting to get tired. So let's go ahead and we can close that out. We'll save our changes to our references. And let's go ahead and go back into our face intro. There we go, guys. Next time, we're going to start working on the actual detail work of our MoltenBug. So we're going to start looking at the highlights and the shading of our various colors and how to separate the subject from the background, and just different lighting techniques that'll help to do that. Okay. Thank you all for coming by. Thank you, Shonas, for stopping in and interacting with me. It was nice meeting you, and it was nice having a nice conversation. I hope you all enjoyed this video, learned a couple things here and there. Or just watched some guy draw a really cool looking monster so far. We'll come back and we will finish this up at some point soon. And all right. I don't remember how to raid. So we're just going to have to end the stream. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of research to remember how to do all that stuff. So, hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you next time, whenever that is. I'm probably going to have a bit more of a schedule of doing this and whatnot, but for now, we'll just call it what it is. All right. Bye, everybody.